if you're like a lot of companies or organizations, you deal with this challenge of micromanagement. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the difference between micro and macro management, or what I call micromanagement versus latitude leadership. Let's define these if we can for a minute. So, micromanagement is small task management. It's dictating what and how people do their job. So in this case, all ownership is going to reside in the leader, and accountability is difficult because ownership has never been diffused throughout the organizations. So all the results are centralized in the leader, and you get forced alignment, but it's often unfocused because it's more than one person can do, even through a force of will. So even though you've got one person who's trying to make everything happen, things are just going to slip through the cracks. How do we compare that with latitude leadership? Let's talk a little bit about what that looks like. Here, as opposed to micromanagement, you have large strategy vision. Ownership resides in the individual, something that I call being the CEO of their own space. So the point is that they own the work that's in their space. And accountability is about what each person commits to do, not what they're told to do. You can see the difference here, that if I'm micromanaging, then as the leader, I'm telling people what to do and how to do it. Whereas if I'm latitude leadership focused, then accountability is what each person commits to do on their own. So as the owner of their space, they decide what it is that they should do. The results are owned by teams and individuals that are closest to the goals. They're not owned by the leader. And there's voluntary alignment. You get shared vision and aligned goals and behaviors. Ultimately, the difference between these two things is really a question of agency. I don't know how your experience has been, but people don't respond well to a lack of agency. If we're forced to do things, we typically rebel, we push back. And why are we afraid of high agency or high levels of agency? Largely because we're afraid of bad outcomes. But counterintuitively, more agency improves accountability. And you can see how this would be. If I decide what I'm going to do and I tell the leader what it is I'm going to do, then it's transparent. And it's very easy to follow up and say, did you do what you said you would do? And how well did you do it? As opposed to if I'm given a task by somebody else and the task really belongs to them, then when someone comes back and says, did you do the task that I was unmotivated to do? It's easy for me to prevaricate and to say it wasn't really my job. It wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't the right thing. It also creates politics and backbiting and back channel conversations. If you get a large scope for freedom of action or thought, you've actually created the ability for the person who best knows the job to do the job. So then you have to ask yourself the question of, why do people want to micromanage? Why do leaders even desire to micromanage? First is fear. If you think about fear, this is the problem of me not really trusting that things will get done, or that they will get done to the level that I need them to get done or want them to get done. So fear leads right to a lack of trust. It's also pride. In some cases, leaders just feel like they know how to do the job better than the person at the front line. I might also be a high performance personality that I feel like I want to achieve and succeed, and therefore need to be involved in doing this. And then just prior successes. I've done this job before in the past, therefore I'm the one who knows how best to do the job today. Now, if you're a latitude leader, how do you think about this? Well, first of all, you have to trust. You have to put your fear aside and say, I believe that somebody can do this job well. By the way, if you don't feel the person can do the job, then you've probably not hired well. And you should probably rethink about how you hired the person in the first place. You need to believe that they can own their own space, that this is a place where they can excel and that you've hired the right skills. Second, there has to be a little space to fail. I mean, if you're not going to be the one who's controlling the job and you've allowed yourself to let go, there has to be a little bit of space to grow and to fail. So I really like Jeff Bezos' approach to this. He said, we have one-way doors and two-way doors when it comes to the questions of whether people can fail. If it's a two-way door, meaning that I can go in, I can make some decisions. The outcomes are pretty quick, and I can walk back out that door again and not have there be a lot of impact. That's kind of a two-way door. Then I have a lot of latitude for failure. If it's a one-way door where I walk in and it's very difficult to get back out once I've made the decision, then I have less latitude for failure. One-way doors are the kinds of decisions that we should take more time on, involve more people, and get engaged. And by the way, it's not that you need to trust less or micromanage more. In this case, there just needs to be more process. So if you understand what those questions are, then you can say, let's not make that decision until we've had some time to think about it and talk about it and have some discussion. On the other hand, if these are two-way doors, then let's get in quickly, let's fail quickly, and let's get back out. If we don't know, then we do the best we can, and you still give the trust and the agency and the latitude to those people to make those decisions, and then you can build and develop process if needed. You also need a lot of loyalty in this situation. You need loyalty with people to give them chances and spaces to be transparent, to be vulnerable, and to learn to grow. You need to guard that agency carefully. You need to make sure that everybody is the owner of their space and that everyone can make the decisions that they need to. Counterintuitively, this leads to high levels of accountability because if I've given people the space to fail and to make decisions, then they need to own the outcomes as well. And that's very powerful because they know that they own their own outcomes. And as you review the outcomes of the decisions they've made, they're able to place directly the impact of the decision they've made with the outcome that happens. And this leads to growth and development as well as strong outcomes. Hopefully this helps you see the difference between micromanaging and latitude leading. And hopefully you can get to more latitude leading that's driven by strong process in your organization. So until next time, I hope that this helps you with your drive for peak performance.